I enjoy the game of golf, and that's why I wanted to present with this one. And I think it's as anyone who plays knows, it's a game that you sometimes love and sometimes hate, but it always keeps you coming back for more. I have enjoyed playing for a long time. I took some coursework in the sport in the game because I wanted to be able to help people play it. And it doesn't matter really whether you're driving at 300 yards or 30 yards, you can still play the game at any age. And I think it's a great sport to play throughout the entire lifespan. So for that reason, I just love the game, and I just love to get better at it too. So I'm hopeful that we can do the same and help people get better through this presentation. So today we're going to be looking at a few things. We're going to look at kind of the main major joint positions of each stage of the golf swing, 4 different main stages of the swing. And then we're going to go into some proper mobility exercises to help us achieve those positions in our golf swing. Then we're going to look at a little bit of strength and some endurance. And then lastly, just briefly look at a proper warm up for a good golf swing and golf round. So with that, let's go and take a look at some of our positions here. So I have a video of Tiger here, and love him or hate him, can't stand him. This guy changed the way golf is played. He changed the way golf is trained for, prepared for. And so we're going to look at him in terms of kind of our perfect golf swing. So we're just going to look briefly here while he's moving. You can see it's back to the target, initiates with those hips, comes all the way up out of that swing. And we're going to look at kind of address the top of that backswing there, impact, and the top of his follow through, his finished position there. So let's start. We'll take a look at his address position, which is right here. So if we look at some of the joints themselves, we're going to start right in the middle at his hips. And so you've got a little bit of bend right here. And then different, you're going to see a little bit different with everyone in terms of the amount of rotation that he's got through his hips. And really you see that through this forward leg here. He's a little bit toed out, which really most of that rotation in his foot is coming from his hip. So you're going to see that there's going to be differences with everyone in that, and especially with men who just don't have as mobile of hips as women do typically. In general, a little less flexible. So that may be why Tiger's doing that, or maybe just because that's how he likes to get in his position. But definitely you're going to have a little bit of flexion here in your hips. You can see they're just bent thighs are angling forward a little bit. So if we go back and we look at the spine, what we're looking for is like this nice yellow line here. He's pretty darn flat through his entire spine. He's got a little curvature here at the top if you take the line away, but he's pretty darn flat, and that's what we're looking for. We don't want to see really hunched over your golf swing or your golf club, excuse me, and you don't want to be really arched back the other direction, but a nice and neutral spine, nice and flat, nice and straight, which just helps keep our swing consistent. Going from there, arms hanging down from your shoulders. So really you're looking at, truthfully, you want a nice straight line right about here. Tiger's a little bit more forward, but he's a little bit more aggressive in his stance. That's just going to provide a bigger arc, bigger circle for his swing and get a little bit more power. But it is Tiger Woods, so that's probably why he's a little forward there. And then knees are also just going to have a slight bend, which is actually really crucial when you're coming in at impact later in the swing. So those are kind of the key positions here: spine, hips, and knees in your address position. And you want to be able to achieve that position rather comfortably. If you have a difficult time really getting your back straight, or bending your knees, bending your hips, things like that, that's something you immediately need to address, because you're not going to be able to get a proper address position, which will throw off the rest of your swing if that's the case. So if we move on to the backswing, we're going to look just at the top of his backswing here. And I've highlighted a couple of key places. We're going to look at a lot of different, we're going to look at all the joints, but those particular ones where we've highlighted here, we'll look at a little bit more in detail. But if we look at his neck, he's actually looking down to the left. The reason for that is his body has rotated, his torso has rotated fully to the right. So even though his head hasn't turned to the left at all, because his torso has turned so far in the other direction, his neck has, relatively speaking, turned to the left. Now, I apologize for all you lefties out there. in advance. This is for right-handed golfers, so just flip everything in reverse if you're a lefty. Sorry about that. So if we start at the neck, he's looking to his left to help maintain eye contact with the ball. Make sure you can see it in the top of his backswing. We move on to his upper back. So his upper back is rotated as far as he can to the right. So that's how we get our back to the target here, as we want in kind of the classic golf swing. And Tiger's got so much rotation, he's probably over-rotated a little bit, even further than his target, which is just giving him a little more wind-up to get that power out of his golf swing. And not only are we rotated as far as we can to the right, if we take a look at this line here, it's bending in the opposite direction. He's bent to his left. So his upper back is rotated to his right, and now he's bent to his left. So we've got a lot of coiling up and motions that are going in the opposite directions. And those motions moving in the opposite directions are really the key to a golf swing. So that's where he's at, sitting in his upper back. And we move down to his hips. We're going to look at right and left hip, and they're rotating in the opposite direction here, relatively speaking, because his hips have not moved that much. His legs are pretty stationary, but because his torso and his pelvis has moved on a stationary leg bone here, this leg is actually rotated in. It's rotating towards the center, rotating to his left. And because of that, we're really winding up a lot in our hip. We're taking up all the motion that we can get in our right hip. And that is huge, 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 huge for creating power in our golf swing. And right here is where we want to initiate to come down to get into our impact. So that is huge, huge, huge. So essentially what I'm trying to look at there is, if you think about a person, I'm going to use this club cover as an example. If you think about a person, if this is the top half up here, rotating away, and you let go, you get a certain amount of snap, which happens from that rotation of their upper half, right? Just right here. Now, if we think about maintaining a fixed position of our legs, or even trying to rotate when we initiate our downswing going towards impact, we're actually going to rotate with our bottom half. Our top half is still going one direction. Our bottom half is going to start rotating the other way. Because of that, you've got much more torque going through the actual middle of your body, where this is where your hip is. This is where you're going to generate that force and that power, and you've got a lot more snap to generate that swing. You can see a lot of people that struggle with this. You want to be rotating through your hips, particularly your right hip, but rotating through both hips as much as possible. You see a lot of people, because they know to initiate the impact, the downswing with their golf club, you're going to see a lot of people really shoot their hips towards the target. They're going to shoot them straight. But if you look at our example here, if I try and shoot my hips this way, I actually lose power. I don't have nearly as much torque to get that club head speed at impact. So you want to get as much rotation here. And when we look at Tiger again at the end, looking at all these positions, you'll see he's got a little forward motion. It's impossible to get rid of all of it entirely, but for the most part, he is rotating around a fixed position, which is how you get maximal power and maximal club head speed at impact. So if we keep going down, both knees are a little bit bent. Right knee a little less than his left, and that will come into play really at impact. But this will be big time at impact as well, to help generate that club head speed and that power to smack the golf ball 300 yards down the fairway, which is what we're all looking to do. Right foot and left foot. So supinated right foot, pronated left foot. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with those terms, but essentially pronated means you've got a flat foot. Your arch is flattening towards the ground. So if you naturally have a flat foot, then you're naturally a little more pronated. If you naturally have a really high arch, then you're naturally a little more supinated. It's just how you were built. There's nothing wrong with either. But his right foot is going to be supinating. It's arching up as he's coiling on his right foot. And his left foot is actually pronating as he's coiling the other direction on his left leg. And all of this is happening because his torso has rotated so far to his right. His lower body really has not moved that much, relatively speaking. So his feet and your feet, when you golf, are pretty darn active, help keep you balanced, help maintain the solid, stable post to stand on, which we'll get into even more at our finish position. Now, if we go back up and look at right and left shoulder, right shoulder here, we're rotated out. We're rotating away from our body in that position. And our left shoulder is coming across our body, which is actually, not only is it coming across, it's rotating in. It's rotating down towards the body, which is once again happening on other sides of the body. We're seeing opposite motions take place. And we're going to flip through all those motions to get max power, max club head speed at impact. And then moving to the elbows, right one bent, left one totally, well, almost totally, almost ramrod straight here from Tiger. The reason for that, if you think about this club head, which is difficult to see with the white, but if you think about this club head making a total arc of motion this way towards the golf ball, that left elbow is what's drawn the circle that direction, going down towards the ball, keeping that circle as you come to impact. And then we'll just kind of briefly talk about wrist position. I think that's more, Kevin's going to talk more about golf swing faults and mechanics and things of that nature, but our wrists are moving and they're kind of the last piece of just kind of a snap to get that last little bit of club head speed before impact. So our wrist can move all sorts of directions, but really when we're at the top of our swing, it's what we call extended this direction. It's also our thumb goes to our outside the body to the right. It can go really, our hand goes really far this direction, but we've got a bony block in one of our forearm bones here, but we're trying to get it as far back this direction so that it can snap through it, because we're thinking about our hands really. If we didn't have a golf club and we were going to hit the ball with our hands, we want to slap it, open hand slap that ball, because we're driving it as far as we can. Whereas if we were chipping, we would want to toss the ball. So our wrist position is actually a little bit different. Our hand position is different when we're chipping than when we're driving or using an iron, trying to hit it down the fairway, something like that, because of the spin and the power and the speed that we want on the ball. So that's all we'll say about wrists for now. So now we'll come into impact here. And this, now he's a little blurry because he's hitting the ball so fast. So that's about as quick or about as good of a screenshot as I can get of Tiger at impact. But you'll notice if we actually quickly hop back up to our backswing, everything here is past tense, right? We're bent, we're rotated, we're pronated, we're straight, all of those things, because we're at the top of our backswing. So we're stationary right here. And you get a lot of good things happen at any activity, but particularly I think golf is a prime example of when you switch directions, when you get to the end range and then you start moving in the opposite direction. That's when you see a lot of good stuff. So if we can get into this position here, this optimal backswing position, you've got a great chance of making a good impact on the ball when you get there. So what you'll notice with impact is all of these things are happening in real time because we're moving at impact. So if we're looking at his neck is now starting to rotate. It's rotating to his right, even though his head hasn't moved at all. His head has not moved from this position. If we look at all of his address and his backswing positions, his head is still right here looking at the ball. But because his torso is rotating so far to the left, motion sense lights here. Because his torso is rotating so far to the left, his neck is relatively speaking rotated to the right. He's now looking behind him. So moving on to his upper back here, he's now starting to rotate to his right. He's unwinding, he's uncoiling from that position he was in. He's rotating to his left. He's unwinding, he's uncoiling from the position he was in at the top of his backswing. Not only that, he's still now bent to his right. If we look at this line, it's not going straight up, it's moving to the right in this direction. And his chest is rotating to the left. So he's got bent to the right, rotated to the left. He's trying to get his chest now to face the target as opposed to his back that was facing the target at the top of his backswing. Now we move down towards the hips and they're straightening out. You can see we've got a lot less bend. There's not as much happening here in terms of the angle, and definitely here in his top and his front leg. They're pretty much straight already at impact. Not all the way yet, though they will be in his follow through. And they're de-rotating. So all of that coiling up that we did, all of the top and the bottom half coiling up that we did in our backswing, he's now reversing that at impact. That's where we generate that power and club head speed. So his hips are rotating now in the opposite direction of what they were at the top of his backswing. And then I really wanted to highlight the knee here when we moved down to his knees. Both knees are still a little bent, but this left one is darn near straight already. Difficult to tell from this angle, but it is darn near straight already. So not only are we unrotating, we're really trying to move up as quickly as we can because that club head in the backswing starts way up here. Now it's way down here. We want to get it back up as quickly as we can through rotation and straightening out of your lower extremity. So a lot of the big power hitters today, not only if we go back to our backswing position, are they focused here with that right hip and that coiling up, but they're focused here. Look how much bend he's got in his knee here, right? Straightening that knee as quickly as possible, right? At impact or before you get to impact. So you can really get a lot of power to bring that club head from here up here as quickly as possible. That's what we're looking at in that left knee, which really drives power. Shoulders are also derotating. So in the last position in the top of his backswing, he's rotated right. He's rotated in with his left elbow. Now the reversal of those things are happening. He'll be fully reversed by the time you see him in his follow through. And then elbows totally straight. And feet are also, that I include here, feet are also moving in the opposite direction. Now he's supinating here, pronating. Well, he's also really supinating here, but at the time of impact, he's a little more neutral. Though I know it's difficult to see with shoes on. That is what's happening here. He's pushing off of this foot, which implies that he's going to be supinated through there. So his arch is rigid. He's given himself a really rigid lever to propel off of to drive that golf ball down the range, down the fairway. So that's what we're looking at impact here. So we'll hit his follow through or his finished position right here. And I circled a few more key areas here. So, but we'll start with his neck. We'll work our way down again. So his neck is now fully rotated to the right. And that is totally because his torso is rotated as far as he can to the left. So now his neck is finally moved. But relatively speaking, we're still rotated right because he's got so much left rotation out of his torso. So when we look at his upper back, if we come down here, so now we're rotated left and bent to the right. So just as in the top of our backswing, I'm going to go back there. Right here, we're rotated right, bent to the left, right? We came all the way through at impact, right? And now we're here in the exact opposite position. So it's still rotation and bending, but it's the opposite. So now he's rotated left and he's bending to his right. Now in a perfect world, he would actually probably have a little bit more bend starting from right about where my mouse is, my cursor is, and moving to the right a little bit. The reason for that, and you watch any of the guys that hit it really big, look at DeChambeau hit, you're going to see a lot of leaning, a lot of bending in that direction. The reason for that is it's almost like a counterbalance because when you've been coiling, and then you're uncoiling so quickly, so violently through there, your whole body is moving you to the left, moving you to the left, moving you to the left. Your upper body really has to bend to the right to keep you balanced, to have a nice, clean finish position. Otherwise, you're all over the place, and it's difficult to stay in this perfect position here. Good challenge for you. What I mean by that, right, is if you should be able to stay perfectly balanced here. So at the end of your swing. So a challenge for you next time you're at the range, try and get into grab your club, swing it, hold your finish position, and then try and lift your back foot off the ground and stay in that position. Don't move, don't unrotate, stay balanced. That is really hard to do. But in a perfect world, we're able to do that with absolute ease because we've got all the mobility we need to achieve that position, which is what we'll look at after we look at Tiger Swing again. So that's really why we want to be rotated left and bent. Definitely want to be bent to his right, even a little bit more so than I would say what we've got here for Tiger. But okay, so let's look at hips. Left hip, big time. Right here. So it is rotated in, and you can see his foot is still almost pointing at the screen. His foot hasn't moved, but his torso is rotated so far that you can see his hip is, relatively speaking, it's rotated to the left, right? Which is huge because it was rotated the other direction at the top of his backswing. So once again, we've moved through an entire range. We've started in one position, rotated, unrotated, and now we're rotated in a different position. the opposite of what we were in. Difficult to do that because not only is it rotated in, but it's also completely straight up and down. As you can see here, his leg's not going behind him, it's totally straight. His hip is not in front of him. That is difficult. The hips, and we're going to talk about right hip in a second, the hip positions of your follow through and your finished position are difficult for a lot of people to achieve. So we look at his right hip. It's still probably rotated in somewhat. I put neutral on the next page, but it's, I would say, maybe rotated in a little, rather neutral, especially compared to his left hip. But crucially, you see that this leg, if you look at where his knee is and where his hip is, this leg is actually pointing backwards. It's pointing behind him towards his foot. That is really, really tough, really, really tough to achieve that perfectly. Why? Well, most people sit at a desk all day for work. Then when you're done with work, you get in your car, you go home, you're sitting in your car, and then you sit down at the dinner table, and then you sit down on the couch. And unfortunately, when we sit, our hip is pointed in the exact opposite direction of what it is currently pointing in. It's pointing forward. So it's really tough to get into this full extended position. When we can't get into that position, it makes it hard for our upper back to do what it wants to do and get us bending to the right and rotating to the left. So it affects the entire finished position and therefore how much power you're going to get, because you need to stay balanced throughout the entire swing. Otherwise, that's how you end up with slices and hooks and tops and all those things that you don't want. So that's why hips are crucial, crucial, crucial for this position. And if we looked at her knee, left knee straight, right knee bent, this knee absolutely straight, and this leg is just a fixed post. It has not moved from the hip down. It hasn't moved at all from your femur to your foot. Nothing's changed, but the torso has rotated on top of it. This is just a stationary post. Right knee, a little bit bent, just mostly for balance because this foot is pointing down at the ground. But the left one, totally, totally straight. So we look at that foot. Left foot is now supinating. That's why I circled that, because he's winding up so much from the top down, starting from his neck all the way down to his foot. That winding now in the opposite direction of what we had in our backswing is coming all the way down to his foot, and you can see his arch. You can see his foot coming off the ground right here. And it's arching so much because the arch of his foot is coming up so much because he's winding, and all of that has hit all the way down to his foot. And he's having to do that in order to maintain this fixed post right here of a leg that he's standing on in his finished position. 99.8% of your weight should be on this leg when you are done with your swing. When you're in this follow through position, your finish should all be here. That's why you should be able to lift this back foot up. And it shouldn't even matter to you because you're in such good, perfect balance there that you can stand on one leg. And so that's why that foot is now crucial in that position. And so we go to the shoulders and the elbows, and the opposites have happened. So his left shoulder is now rotated out, whereas it was rotated in the backswing. And his right shoulder is rotated in now in this position. And both elbows are bent because we're trying to get the club head to this position as quickly as we can. So we bend those elbows right at the end after impact. Once the arc, when we're trying to make power, when we're trying to hit with that perfect circle, after impact, it's not going to matter as much. We got to get that club head back to this position as quickly as we can. So we bend our elbows, and our wrists are back in this position where we're really trying to get our thumb to move towards our forearm, which is difficult because we have forearm bones that just block the way. But that's where we've gone. We started in that position, we went out of it, and now we're back in it in our follow through. So we'll just take a look at them again here, just briefly. Now that we've talked about it, so he's got that perfect initiative here. You can see if it buffers. There we go. And he's got a little bit of that forward movement. Got a little bit of his hips here, which you'll see when it goes in slow motion. And there we go. And his takeaway comes up, it's facing up, initiates with the hips right there, comes out, and gets into his follow-through position. Perfect, gets his back to the target, and he's nice and balanced by the time he's done. All right, so we're going to look at a few mobility exercises here. So I'm going to come on over here. So if you take a look at this guy, you can see with the two views that he is rotating to his left and he's bent to his right. Okay, this gentleman is displaying perfect form for what you need out of your spine. This particular position is what we're demonstrating for his follow through, right? So if you're going to do that as a stretch, you come right here, right arm's going to go across you, going to rotate, and then come over the top, right? So you're going to get all that rotation and you're going to get all that bend, right? Which is exactly what we need in our follow through position. Now all you need to do is turn that around and you're in your backswing, right? We've got the opposite motions here in that this is all the rotation that we need here for our follow through, and then we've got our bending that we need for our follow through. And like I said, turn it around and you've got exactly what we need for our backswing, right? For all the winding up we need to get into our backswing. Okay. So now we've got two more here for our hips. So this position right here that this woman is in is the position that we need for that finish, that perfect finish position, especially out of our right leg. It is pointing behind us. So easily done. All you need is that chair. But it helps get that the front of our hip stretched. So when you're doing that stretch, all we need is a foot on a stationary object. Hopefully you guys see me okay. Foot on a stationary object. Back foot is going to be back. It's going to be flat. The foot is going to be pointing straight. Weight is going to stay on your back leg. And you're just going to move forward and backwards, right? Forward and backward into that stretch. You may want to hold for a few seconds. I think dynamic stretching is a little bit better because golf is a pretty dynamic sport when you're moving through it. You don't hold any one position for very long. So I don't find that I hold stretches for a very long time because it just doesn't mimic what we do in our golf swing. So that's to help get with that follow through position. Now, if you take a look at our foot too, you can also play with that a little bit. And because our hips are rotating a lot of different directions in the golf swing, you could change that foot position. You could toe it out, you could toe it in, which I think would be more beneficial for the golf swing. But you can change that foot position, tweak it a little bit to make it more true to the golf swing as well, not just pointing straight behind you like it is, though just this stretch alone is a great one for, I can tell you, pretty much every golfer out there. Now, if we look at the other gentleman here stretching with his leg on the table, his leg is on the table and his hip is rotated quite a bit. So if you look at that, that is to help with the amount of rotation that we need from both hips during our golf swing. Really stretches out the back of the hip, and he's just going to lean forward over that. So I'll give you just a quick demo here. Hopefully you can see okay. I'll come from the side view. So leg comes up on the table. So at home, anything to use, couch, bed, stack some pillows under your knee. If you're one of these people that it looks like this, just grab a pillow, something, anything, stack it under your knee just to get a little bit of help. And from there, you're just going to lean forward over that hip. And actually, what I really prefer is leaning a few different directions. So if I bring you around here, rotating a few different directions, going over your knee, coming off of there, straight forward, coming off of there, and then straight over your foot, coming off of there. All three directions change a little bit where you're going to get your stretch and mimic more of what we need for our golf swing. So now, if we look at our arms, what we need for arms, we've covered our spine, we've covered our hips, and now we need to cover shoulders a little bit. Oh, and let me, before I forget, if we come back to this one, you notice his head position, he's looking at his bottom hand. He's looking off to his left. But if you wanted to tweak that to more mimic the sport of golf again, all you really need to do is keep your head looking down at your feet. That's going to help get the stretch you need out of your neck as well, because we talked about at the beginning, in pretty much every phase of the swing, you need a lot of rotation out of your neck. So easy tweak to make that one a little bit more like the actual golf swing. Okay, so now if we look at shoulders, easy one to do, both of them easy to do, don't need much. Doorway is perfect, just a hand on the doorway. Elbow's going to be flat on the doorway. You're going to step forward. So if I'm stretching my left hand, I like to step forward with my left foot, and you're just going to get a stretch through your pec right here. And what do you know, if you put your arm in that position, if you're a right-handed golfer, and then you rotate, well, this is your backswing position, the top of your backswing. And that's why I like this particular stretch, because it's going to mimic exactly what your shoulder needs to do to get into your backswing. And then it's what you need to do, right, to mimic your follow through position as well. So if we look at the other gentleman here, it's just a simple crossbody stretch, right? Just pulling your arm across your body. Okay, nice and easy. And this also mimics, right, exactly what we need to be in for our backswing. And then it mimics the other shoulder for our follow through. So nice, easy stretches to do for that. So we've got one for the spine, couple for your hips, and 2 for your shoulders. Those are the big joints that most people are lacking the mobility in for the golf swing. And like I said, you can tweak them a little bit as needed, or depending on where you feel a better stretch or a little more tight, you can definitely mimic the golf swing more so with just easy little tweaks to these stretches. All right, so now let's take a look at strength. So a squat. Now, see this guy, we've got 7 different variations of a squat here. The reason I like a squat, if we come all the way back up, if we look at our finished position here, look how straight his legs are. Perfectly straight. If we come and look at his backswing, look how bent his legs are. Knees and hips are bent. All right, meaning we got to move through all of that motion. Right, we have to go from a bent position to a standing position. Therefore, a squat mimics that because our knees are bent and our hips are bent. Now we've got a lot of different variations here. Here's just a neutral squat. Now we've staggered, so it's difficult with these pictures to see, I think, perfectly. But essentially, we're just altering the squat in the X, Y, and Z plane, because though we talked about joint positions at each swing, we really only talked about one just for simplicity's sake. Each joint is moving in all 3 planes of motion. We live in a 3D world. We move in a 3D way. Each joint is moving in all 3 directions at the same time. It's just where are they predominantly moving. That's kind of what we talked about for each swing position. But I like this squat and these variations because it's the variations that you actually move through in your golf swing too. So with his foot position here, he's starting in neutral, then he's moving 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. He's switching. He's rotating his feet in, he's rotating his feet out, he's going wide, and he's going narrow. But it's all the same squat. It's all the same squat. So if you really want to work on power, then you've got to add a little weight to your squat too. Now, he's got his hands out for balance, but you could easily hold on to some dumbbells, either here at your shoulders or hold on to a kettlebell here, make it like a goblet squat. Or if you wanted to, if you are willing and able and want to put a barbell on your back, go ahead. Don't hurt yourself. But you're going to have to add some weight to get a little bit more power if that's really what we're looking for, more than just body weight with those variations. All right. Now, if we look to another easy one, a lunge. So I really like this one because he's also got the torso rotation that we have when we golf. So if you look at a lunge, this gentleman is just going to move forward into his lunge. As he lunges forward, he's rotating his arms over that front hip. Now, once again, he's looking in the direction of his hands. You want to tweak it for golf. Continue to look forward, even as you rotate your body, right? Other position here, right? Same thing. Now I'm getting that motion out of my neck that I need. I'm getting the motion out of my torso that I need, and I'm getting stronger. So if you really look at the reason I love this one in particular, right? If you look at our, if you go back and look at, I'm not gonna flip back this time, but if you look at our, the top of our backswing, this hip is bent just like it is here in this lunge. It's rotated in just like it is here in this lunge, because his torso is in this position, just like it is in the top of our backswing. So this position right here is exactly the position of your back hip. If you're a right-hander, sorry, lefties, it is exactly the position that your back hip is in at the top of your backswing. It's a little more exaggerated with a lunge, but it's the exact same position, which is why I really like this one. And just like our squats, truthfully, you're moving through all 3 planes of motion at once. So what we've got here is just kind of standard forward lunge. Then we've got a lateral lunge and a rotation with that lunge. So demo that a little bit. With the rotation, coming forward lunge, and you're just going to go straight to the side. You're still going to rotate, right? I'm sure you're still going to rotate, okay? And the last one, you're actually going to rotate through your hips. So you're not going straight to the side. You're not going to go straight backwards. You're going to go kind of at a 45-degree angle. So you're going to rotate there. So continue to rotate your torso. All right. So you've got forward, sideways, and then a rotation. Okay. You don't have to rotate your torso, but I do think that it does mimic the golf swing a little bit better, which is why I kind of like that one. But if you wanted to add weight, you can hold those. You can hold dumbbells at your sides, hold a kettlebell, whatever it is. Or if you really want to add weight and add the rotation, hold on to a medicine ball, or even if you don't want to, if you don't have any access to that equipment, I mean, fill up a gallon jug of water, and that will work just fine for weight. That's all you really need for this particular exercise if you're rotating your torso like that too. So I really like this one as well, just for how it can mimic the golf swing. And the last one we've got is for your shoulders. Same thing. This guy's holding the medicine ball. If you don't want to do that, hold on to a gallon jug of water. That's really all you're going to need. And the only thing we're doing here is we're going straight up, right? He's coming over to the side, both directions, right? And he's coming up and out to the side, both directions, okay? Which I like this one because our hands stay together just as they do in a golf swing, and we're moving in multiple directions. Take a look at this middle one here. We're really getting much closer to what happens with our golf swing, as is this one too. But our shoulders, just like every other joint, they're moving in 3 planes of motion at once, just as they do in the golf swing as well. And so this one, I think, also really mimics what our shoulders need for our strength golf swing. But if you notice, we've got 2 exercises, our squat and our lunge for our hips, and only 1 for the shoulders. That is deliberate. That's because most people are hacking away at the golf course trying to swing with their arms. But if you are a longtime golfer, you know that the power in your swing comes from that hip. And as we just discussed from all of our specific positions in the swing, the power is coming from your hips and your legs. So I would really rather, you want to get better, you want to hit it further, strengthen your legs, work on your mobility. That's what's going to really drive the golf ball. Shoulders are really secondary to the rest of what I've shown you so far. So that's kind of our strength. So endurance, very simple. Add speed, add reps. I don't need to change anything from what I'm having you do for strength. So if we go back to our squat, right, you got 7 different positions here. I would say if we're going for endurance, get rid of the weight. Okay. We don't need a whole lot of weight. We just need either more reps. Okay. So if you're doing for strength, somewhere between anywhere, I would say 4 to 8 reps, if you're throwing on some weight while you're doing these squats. Right now for endurance, you're looking at 12 to 15 reps, or add some speed and a time component. If you took 30 seconds for each one of these squat positions and repped out as many squats as you can, as quickly as you can in that 30 seconds, your heart rate will be going up by the time you're done with all 7 positions of those squats. Big time. Same with the lunges. If you took 30 seconds for each one of those lunges with that torso rotation, your heart rate will go up, I can guarantee. And that will work on your endurance, which will help you last for a whole 18 holes, or 36 if you're so inclined. So really, that's all you're going to need to do to change to go from strength to endurance. And like I said, add reps, reduce the amount of weight if you're using weight. Okay. All right, let's look at warm-up. So when I go to the golf course, I will be doing all of the mobility exercises that I showed you. The one exception maybe is the one with the, I'll come up to it. Maybe is this guy if I can't find a good place to do that. But otherwise, I'm going to be hitting all of them. I'm definitely hitting this one. Hold on to your golf cart. Okay. Easy to do, and get that stretch going. Okay. Definitely going to hit this one. There's plenty of benches around, or put your foot on the golf cart, whatever it is. Though I think walking a course is great if you've got the stamina for it. Another way to really increase your endurance, walk the golf course. These ones super easy to do. There's always something to hold on to. Golf cart, whatever it is. Always something around. Okay, so when I'm going to golf, I'm going to be hitting all of those. I will also do some of the lunges that I just showed you. I get some weird looks sometimes, but then I hit it down the fairway and people don't look at me anymore after that, so it's fine. I will do the lunges, and I will do the shoulder exercises as well. The reason I like to include those ones is because it just gets the shoulders moving. The other things are not going to move your shoulders as much. And your shoulders, though they don't provide really the primary source of strength and power for your swing, they are moving quickly. So you want to make sure that they are warmed up and ready to go by the time you start swinging your club. So that is why I'll include the shoulder exercises. You really don't need anything in terms of weight for that. Typically, I just kind of hold on to my golf club and just move them in those directions. And then get out there, swing the club a few times, nice and light. Get your shoulder, get your body loose, get it ready to roll, and you're ready to hit the links. So I'm hopeful that through today, we just are able to keep you from being this guy. And now if you have any questions, I'll kind of kick it over to Annette.